Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Alain, for the introduction. I'm delighted to be here today to present to you the tools we developed in collaboration with Concawe, and that I hope will help to answer a part of the question of this session number 2. But first, I would like to have a brief few words concerning my company, but my colleague Joris Melgar already has done the job. So I will directly go to my division, the Mobility and System Division at IFPN. And our research and innovation focus areas are developing vehicle electrification, offering solutions for connected mobility, improving internal combustion powertrain, optimizing the use of alternative fuels, and what is not written here, providing also answers to the economic and environmental questions that come with the decarbonization of the transport sector. And that will be today's main topic. So indeed, today I will present you the tools that we developed in collaboration with Concawe. But first, I will start with a brief introduction and description to the LCA methodology and the scope of emissions that we are addressing in these tools. Then I will present the 2 studies that we conducted with Concawe. So the first one, briefly concerning light passenger vehicles, and more precisely plug-in hybrid vehicles. And the second one that we started at the beginning of this year, the 2020 tool. The goal was to provide a tool for heavy-duty vehicles and also for comparing the greenhouse gases emission of heavy-duty vehicles. And I will conclude my presentation by presenting the potential, but also the limits of this type of tools. So concerning life cycle assessment, I will not tell you anything new by saying that we cannot reduce the environmental impact of a vehicle to its exhaust emissions. As you can see here on the diagram, of course, there are some emissions, tank-to-wheel CO2 emissions, but the LCA allows us to take into account CO2 emissions that are emitted during the production of the fuel and the energy carriers used by the vehicle, but also during the vehicle production, as well as its components and the vehicle life cycle. So life cycle assessment is a well-recognized methodology to quantify these different emissions. These can be CO2 emissions, but also different environmental impacts, such as the water consumption and the emission of particulates. But for the tools that I will present later, we only are focusing on CO2 emissions, so greenhouse gases emissions. But to provide environmental assessment, we first need to characterize the energy consumption of the vehicles. So this work was thoroughly conducted, carried out by FPN during this first study, this first collaboration between Concawe and IFPN in 2020, that started in 2020 and that ended last year. So we started by an extensive experimental campaign on 2 tested PHEVs at IFPN. You can see all the different conditions in which they have been tested, so in lab and on road, for different climate conditions, driving conditions, for different fuels, gasoline, diesel, and renewable fuels, and for different also usage concerning the recharge frequency. So all these experimental data and measurements helped IFPN to calibrate a simulation platform based on SimCenter AmSim software to assess the energy consumption of the vehicles. So we calibrated a sketch for PHEV, but also for BEV and for HEV. And then with the different energy simulation results, we integrated CO2 emission factors in order to assess the life cycle greenhouse gases emissions of these different vehicles, and then being able to compare them in the tool. So this slide illustrates the methodology. So I will not go too deep into details in this slide concerning this first study, but what we can see is that we used the simulation platform to run more than 50,000 simulations. We coupled these results also with use cases and statistical data related to the use of PHEVs, but we did also this work for HDV and BEVs. And the goal was to have real-world performance of these different vehicles concerning all kinds of different factors, such as the climate conditions, the driving conditions, the recharge frequency, and so on. So we were able to create and to calculate, provide utility factors for all this type of conditions for PHEVs. So at this stage, we can see that this is not possible to assess, to assign a single value for the consumption of PHEVs, but no, for HEV or BEVs, it depends on a lot of factors. And that's why we wanted with Concawe to create, at the end of this first study, a tool, a comparison tool, an interactive dashboard that will allow us and allow the user to see the influence of these different factors on the overall consumption and then on the greenhouse gases emissions of these different vehicles. So you can see the list here. These factors that can be modified in the tools are related to the design of the vehicles. You can select the powertrains, the battery size, the lifetime mileage of the vehicles. Then you have parameters regarding the usage of the vehicles, especially the recharge frequency for PHEVs. And of course, you can change and select the energy carriers and more especially the carbon intensity of the electricity grid. So this is a view of the first tool dedicated to light passenger vehicles. You will be able to play with it at the back of the conference room. You have touch screens that allow you to play with it, and you can ask me questions during the afternoon if you have it. You can also access to this tool thanks to this link, so carco2comparator.eu, that was published by Concawe at the end of last year. So then, drawing from this experience with this first tool and our confidence in our simulation platform tool, Concawe decided to take it a step further by creating a second tool dedicated to heavy-duty applications, vehicles. So we started this work at the beginning of this year, 2023, and the goal was to provide the tool for summer 2023. So the second tool was published on July. So on this link, HDV CO2comparator.eu, that was also published by Concawe. So I will go into the methodology for this second tool, and then I will try to make a short demo of this tool. But as well, you can do the same at the back of the conference on the second screen that you have. So due to the tight schedule that we had, we were not able to calibrate our platform with experimental data as we did for the previous tool for light passenger cars. But we validate this step using the Vecto tool as a reference. So what is Vecto? It is an expert tool to simulate CO2 emissions. It was developed on behalf of the European Commission GRC by TU Graz, and it is used currently to certify the CO2 emissions for heavy-duty vehicles, but tank-to-wheel CO2 emissions. So what you can see on the right-hand side of this slide is the comparison between the results between our simulation platform tool at IFPN based on SimCenter AmSim and the results from the Vecto tool. Since in Vecto there are a lot of data that allow to simulate generic vehicles for different segments of heavy-duty vehicles. So in this second tool, we can compare emissions for Class 5 long-haul vehicles, Class 2 delivery trucks, city buses, coach buses, and refuse truck. So we did this validation step for all these different segments of vehicles. So at this point, one may wonder why we did not use Vector to directly feed the results of the dashboard. It is because electrified powertrains were not covered by the current version of Vector. It appears that there are ongoing works to take them into account. But for the current version, there are only internal combustion engine vehicles available in Vector. So we decided to go and to keep using our simulation platform tool that enables us to extrapolate by creating electrified powertrain sketches for fuel cell vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and battery electric vehicles. We also wanted to take into account the hydrogen vector, so through the fuel cell vehicles, but also by burning directly hydrogen in internal combustion engines. So we took the data from Vector for these generic vehicles for Class 5, Class 2, city buses, coach, and refuse trucks. And then, thanks to a literature review, we were able to define the different powertrain sizing for all these artificial vehicles. So we have, in the end, 35 vehicles that were modeled, and then they were simulated on various conditions, using also vector cycles that were relevant for all these different applications. So at this point, we have a matrix of 35 vehicles, but also we have the definition of powertrain sizing to assess the life cycle analysis. So as the first tool, the lifecycle analysis was performed using CIMAPRO software, which is a dedicated software. Also, we used the EcoInvent LCA database, and we followed the environmental footprint reference 3.0 that was written by the European Commission to guide this lifecycle analysis. And in the end, this methodology provides us CO2 equivalent emission factors for the different components of the powertrains. And we will make some of them available in the tool to be changed. So I'm thinking about the battery production emission factors, as well as the fuel cell and H2 tanks. So this is the blue part for the life cycle part. For the well-to-tank part, we relied on the results of the well-known JEC V5 report for well-to-tank emission factors, for which Concawe contributed. For e-fuels, we relied on the more recent paper by Concawe, the 1722 report, because it has more accurate assumptions concerning the renewable electricity used for synthetic fuels. So that's for the well-to-tank part. Also, yes, we can change, of course, the carbon intensity of the electricity used for BEVs and PHEVs in the tool. So that's for the red part. And finally, for the tank-to-wheel part, the user can change the sizing, the efficiency, and the usage of these different vehicles for the comparison. So here's the list of the different parameters that we can find in this second tool. So, of course, there are some differences with the first tool, since some of these parameters are more relevant for HDVs. I'm thinking about the payloads that can be changed. And also we can see that there are new parameters related to the H2 vector. So related to fuel cell, but also H2 capacity, the production of carbon fiber tanks, and also the possibility to change the fuels to use different pathway for H2, but also gas. So this is a view of the second tool. I will try to make a quick demo of it. Yes, I'm sharing. So this is yes, the web page, the HDV CO2comparator.eu web page. And in this part, you can see the tool and its this first page in which you can select the segment that you want to analyze to make the greenhouse gases comparison. So you can see the 5 different segments. The interest also of having this kind of tool is that you have, yes, you can access to a lot of additional pages, information pages to understand how the tool works, and also to understand what were the different hypotheses behind the results of this tool. So here you can access the user guide that will explain how to use the tool. And on the bottom here, you can access also to a description of the methodology that I just explained here. So the fact that we rely on the simulation system to provide energy consumption, and that we rely on LCA methodology to provide CO2 equivalent emission factors. So then I will select, for example, the class 5 vehicle, and I will then access to the results. So on the left-hand side, we can see the different results expressed in grams CO2 equivalent emissions per tons kilometers transported. So we take into account the payload, also the fact that we can lose a part of this payload by using, for example, battery that will take well, the place of the goods. For the first tool dedicated to light passenger tool, the functional unit was the gram CO2 equivalent emissions per kilometers. And so the results are here, and each bar corresponds to a vehicle that you can define on the right-hand side of the page. So on the top, you can select the different powertrains. So for the moment, we have, for example, a BEV and different ICEVs that are using different fuels. In this vehicle definition part, you can select the efficiencies of the engines, the peak efficiency also of the fuel cell. You will have information here concerning these assumptions in this information panel. And you can have access also to other CO2 emission factors related to the battery production, fuel cell production, and the tanks, as I said. Then we can also change the cycles on which we are making the analysis. So, as I said, the cycles are taken from the vector tool and the vector definition. Also for the payloads, so the different payloads that we have in this tool for the different segments are defined in vector. And this will automatically change the results. And you can find, of course, more information here on these dedicated pages concerning the assumptions for cycles, payload, and also how fuel consumption for PHV was calculated. And on the bottom, we have all the parts dedicated to energy carriers. So, of course, we can change the electricity carbon intensity here. That's well, a major parameter for the results. If you do not have any clue on how to set this value, you can go here and go to this dedicated page that gives emission factors that were taken from a scientific peer-reviewed paper by the GRC. And of course, then you can also change the different fuels. So you can change, as I said, the pathway for the hydrogen production. And here you can have access to all the different fuels that we incorporated in the tool. And as I said, the emission factors are taken from the JEC V5 report. Yes, so I will end here for the demo, so you can play. I hope this demo give you the will to play with the tools. I will just go back to my presentation in order to conclude. I don't know if I have to change it. That's good? Okay, thank you. So yes, so the IFPN and Concawe collaboration has resulted in the two interactive dashboards for the comparison of greenhouse gases emissions. We rely on a scientific and transparent approach for all these assumptions and the production of these different results. The tools are designed to guide the public, but also policymakers, in order to identify the different solutions to decarbonize the road transport. The tools do a lot, but do not answer all questions. As you can see, we are only focusing on CO2 equivalent comparisons. Life cycle assessment allows to make a comparison on other environmental impacts. So, as I said, we could compare, for example, consumption of water, of raw materials, of local pollutants, of land use. Well, there's a lot of impacts that can be quantified by LCA and that could be added to the tool. Also, the economic considerations, it could be relevant also to cross these results with TCO results in order to identify the promising solutions. This morning we talked about availability of the different resources of the battery materials, but also biofuels. So this is something that we could couple to this current tool. And of course, there's the need to update the different assumptions behind this tool to make it alive and to make it consistent with the actuality. So thank you for your attention. I would like also to thank Roland Dauphin that piloted the work for the two tools, also Dieter Walter, and my colleague at IFPN. Thank you.